Hey guys, this is the reading guide for the reading guide for part 2, numbers 4 and 5. We're going to go ahead and tackle this relatively quickly. This video shouldn't be too long. So the first question asks, what is capital investment? If you guys didn't find this one, I'm going to be relatively upset because it's literally emboldened here, guys. It says capital investment is the construction and development of long-lasting resources designed to help produce more in the future. And of course, this chapter is titled An Efficient Capital Market. We want to make sure that capital, the items that are being used to produce things in the future, are being actually devoted to things that we're going to need in the future, right? Two large government-sponsored corporations, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, dominated the mortgage market during 1995 through 2008. Why did these two firms have a competitive advantage over other lenders in the market? They talk about it down here where I have this highlighted. They say, I'm going to go ahead and read what I just have highlighted here. Even though Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were privately owned businesses, investors perceived that the bonds they issued to raise their funds were less risky because they were backed by the government. As a result, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were able to borrow funds at approximately half of a percentage point cheaper than private firms. This gave them a huge advantage over their rivals, and they were highly profitable for many years. Okay, so in 1968 and 1970, the federal government created these two companies known as Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and they were privately owned, even though they were created by the government, or I guess not necessarily. I guess sponsored, chartered would be a better way to put it. So that they were these government-backed banks. People saw them as being a safe investment, so people were willing to loan money to these companies at a lower rate, because if someone's going to be a safe investment, if you're choosing between a safe investment and a not safe investment, the safe investment you can rationalize, or they can charge you a lower rate because they can say, hey, we're safer, we have the government backing us up, right? So people were loaning to them at a lower rate, which then meant that they could beat out the competition. Okay. So because they were related to the government, people saw them as less risky and gave them money for cheaper. Okay. Responding to regulations and political pressure, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac began approving mortgages with little or no down payment and extending more loans to subprime borrowers in the late 1990s. What impact did this policy initially have on demand for the price of housing? One thing, really quick before we go on, I don't really like the way this question's worded. It makes it sound like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are the ones loaning out money. In truth, they were buying mortgages. They were not actually loaning out money themselves. They would buy mortgages from people that made loans. But yes, they were being pressured with regulations from Congress in order to have more. They had to have 50% of their mortgages be from low income and middle income borrowers, which turned out to be subprime borrowers. The longer time went on, and they weren't able to find borrowers that could pay back the loan in the low and middle income brackets. So what impact did this have initially? At first, what happened as they were loaning out money to more and more individuals, that wasn't supposed to happen. Oh no. See if I can refresh this. My highlight got messed up. That's not good. eBooks wants to know my location. Oh no. Ugh. I don't think I can see that part. Okay, well, it looks like the wrong thing got highlighted. Weird. So, essentially what happened, as more and more people are giving money, right? If people are giving money to build houses, what do you think's happening, right? Well, if there's more people getting money in the funds to buy houses, we're going to see an increase in demand, and that's exactly what this couple of sentences says here. Both Congress and the presidential administrations of Bill Clinton and George W. Bush were highly supportive of these policies and took credit for the initial increase in home ownership, and they helped generate. As the policies eroded mortgage lending standards, making credit more readily available for risky loans, the initial effects seemed positive. The demand for housing increased. Housing prices soared during the 2001-2005 era, and there was a boom in the construction industry. So at first, it made it so that there was more demand for housing. However, we'll learn in these later questions what happened when that money remained too cheap. Okay, So what are the three functions of money? These are different than the words we learned in class, but they are similar enough that you'll be able to see this yourself. So the first thing is a means of exchange. We said in class medium of exchange, but exchange is the word that you're missing here. A means to store, of course, they said purchasing power, but we said a store of value is the word we use in class. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. We said a store of value, and this is just saying the same thing. Okay, it means to store purchasing power for future use. And the last part was a unit of, and they said a unit of account. Okay, a unit of account, and that's what we used in class. Okay. A medium of exchange means that we can trade with it indirectly. It reduces transaction costs because it provides common denominator to which the value of all goods and services can be converted. It is a storing of purchasing power for future use, meaning that if I'm a farmer, I can sell everything and have money and then store it, whereas it'd be very hard for me as a farmer to store my crops because they would lose value over time. And money is a unit of account. It enhances people's ability to keep track of benefits and costs, right? Because we have a unit that we can compare things with. In America, we compare the unit of value. We compare things in terms of dollars, right? So, inflation. What is it? How does it occur? We have a nice paragraph here that talks about it. Those of you that have read any other book in high school, you know that this is the paragraph you want to look at, because look at the word inflation. It's highlighted. So let's read this paragraph. There is no mystery about the cause of monetary instability. Like other commodities, the value of money is determined by supply and demand. When the supply of money is constant or increases at a slow, steady rate, the purchasing power of money will be relatively stable. In contrast, when the supply of money expands rapidly compared to the supply of goods and services, the value of money declines and prices rise. This is inflation. It occurs when governments print money or borrow from a central bank in order to pay their bills, right? When more money enters the money supply that is being circulated between the people that use it. Okay, so again, this is inflation. What is inflation? It's referring to this sentence before it. When the supply of money is wrong sentence. In contrast, when the supply of money expands rapidly, that is inflation right there. How does it occur? It occurs when governments print money or borrow from a central bank. Okay, moving on. When inflation is volatile, how is the volume of trade affected? There is this great paragraph right here. Let's read it. Countries with high rates of inflation nearly always have wide fluctuations in the inflation rate. High and variable rates of inflation undermine prosperity. When prices increase 20% one year, 50% the next year, and 15% the year after that, and so on, individuals and businesses are unable to develop long-term plans. Weird that someone followed me right now. Oh well, going on. The uncertainty, I'm recording this video, I'm not live right now. This uncertainty makes the planning and implementation of capital investments projects risky and less attractive. Unexpected changes in the inflation rate can quickly turn an otherwise profitable project into an economic disaster. Rather than dealing with these uncertainties, many decision makers will simply forego capital investments and other transactions involving long-term commitments. Some will even move their business and investment activities to countries with a more stable environment. As a result, potential gains from trade, business activities, and capital formation will be lost. So all of that is just an explanation as to this last sentence here. As a result, potential gains from trade, business activities, and capital formation will be lost. So the answer to the question, when the inflation rate is volatile, how is the volume of trade affected? Well, that last sentence says it right there, right? Because it makes it harder to do business, the potential gains from trade is lost. So the volume of trade, there's less of it, right? If our potential for volumes of trade, how much we're trading, is lost, then the volume of trade is decreased. When policymakers shift to a more expansionary monetary policy, what will be the initial impact of this policy on interest rates, investment, and the level of economic activity? We can read this fun sentence here, or paragraph, sorry. Economic progress will be undermined when monetary policymakers are constantly shifting between monetary expansion and contraction. When the monetary authorities expand the money supply rapidly, initially, the more expansionary monetary policy will generally push interest rates downward, stimulating current investment and creating an artificial economic boom. Again, the question was, when they shift to a more expansionary monetary policy, what will be the initial impact on interest rates? Well, they say that the generally push interest rates downward. Okay, when they shift to expansionary, right? We have monetary policy, expansionary monetary policy will generally push interest rates down. They're making money more readily available, so it's pushing the price of money, interest, down. So now we just have to see what happens to investment and the level of economic activity. Let's continue reading. Stimulating current investment. So it stimulates investment. It makes people want to invest more, right? When money's cheap, people want to invest in more things. Just like when items are cheap, you want to buy more items. When money is cheap, people want to invest more. And the level of economic activity, we can see that it creates an artificial economic boom, right? It causes people to be really active and investing on a whole lot of different things, but it's all artificial, right? It's not because it's things that we genuinely need. It's just because the Federal Reserve has made money cheap. Okay. During 2002 through 2004, the expansionary monetary policy of the Fed, interest rates went to historically low levels. What did these low interest rates have on the demand of housing? I do not think it is talked about in this. Okay, let's go down to, I believe, this sentence. There's 2 paragraphs here. Both of them are good. They're the last, 2 paragraphs pretty much, because there's a sentence after them. But more recently, expansionary monetary policy pushed short-term interest rates to then historic low levels during 2002 and 2004. As policymakers sought to stimulate a more rapid recovery from the recession of 2001, as Exhibit 7 shows, you can see here, we had a recession. So what they did was they lowered the interest rates. Okay, they lowered the interest rates in this 2001 to try to stimulate economic growth, right? Artificially stimulate economic growth, right? The 1-year Treasury bill interest rate was maintained at 2%. We can see that. Or less throughout 2002, 2003, and 2004, right? We can see that it was at 2%, and then went lower and lower and lower until eventually it went back up. We'll talk about that here in a second. This expansionary monetary policy, coupled with the regulations that eroded lending standards discussed in the previous element, generated a housing market boom. However, as the inflation rate rose during 2005, we can see that here where my cursor is. In 2005, the Fed shifted to a more restrictive monetary policy, and interest rates, look at that, they rose. This slowed the housing price inflation, but it also soon led to soaring mortgage default and housing foreclosure rates, and eventually led to the Great Recession of 2008. So, during 2002-2004, the expansionary monetary policy of the Fed pushed interest rates to historic low levels. Got it. We see that. What impacted these low rates on the demand of housing? Well, alongside money being easier to get alongside more loans being made to more people during this time, money was also easier to get. So this led to even more housing being demanded. Okay. As the inflation rate rose in 2005, the Fed shifted to a more restrictive monetary policy that pushed the interest rates upwards. We can see that here in this bluish area. What impact did this policy have on the demand for and the price of housing? Well, we know that money got more expensive, so the demand for housing decreased, right? However, as the inflation rate rose in 2005, the Fed shifted to a more restrictive monetary policy and interest rates rose. This slowed the housing price inflation. So housing did stop going up in prices, but it also soon led to a soaring mortgage default and housing foreclosure rates. There's no one really left wanting to buy houses when the money wasn't coming in as easily, right? So we can I'll go ahead and read the rest of this here because this is a very important idea for your quiz that will be on Friday. The combination of regulations promoting loose mortgage lending standards and the Fed's artificially low interest rate policies encouraged decision makers to borrow more money and make housing investments beyond what they could afford. While the policy created a housing construction boom during the 2002-2005 era, many of these investments were uneconomical. They should never have been undertaken. They comprise what economists call malinvestment. Before any economy can return to a sustainable path of growth, these badly allocated investments will have to be cleansed from the system. As the severe contraction, which started in December of 2007 and ended in June 2009, illustrates, this is a costly and painful process because sadly, some of these investments may have been businesses, and as these businesses have to be, removed by them not being competitive anymore, and they have to end up closing down, that's people's jobs, right? And it hurts, and that's why the Great Recession is referred to as the Great Recession, as we allude back to the Great Depression, because it was not a happy time with many people losing their jobs. So this is all we have for this reading guide. Again, the reading guides are a guide, right? You should be reading more, but this was me helping you find the answers for the reading guide. We will have a quiz tomorrow. As an added note and bonus to you, there is a bit of 4 and 5 that have a great deal to do with sections 2 and 3. So make sure you are familiar with competition and how regulation can inhibit competition and lead to some results that we're probably not be happy with, and how removing how removing regulation could cause there to be more competition and therefore some better results. Guys, thank you so much for watching this tutorial for the reading guide. Have a great day. Bye.